comments?
No comments. My name is Luke Antonich. I'm the city engineer. If you have any questions for me during the course of the meeting, I'd be happy to chime in.
Excellent, thank you. All right, with there being no citizen comments, we'll move on to corrections or additions to the agenda. Do we have any? No? Bearing no corrections or additions to the agenda, we'll move on to the active agenda. So we will approve minutes of September 12th, 2023. So everybody's had a chance to review those.
I move we accept the minutes from September.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes
Both second.
Joe and Joe.
of September
Joe
12th,
and Joe G.
2023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on the agenda, approval of invoices. We have two invoices, first one being with the city of Lewiston for cost totaling $21,277.65. Second one being Elam and Burke invoice number 204164 for $25.
And Madam Chair, can I explain the City of Lewiston one?
Absolutely, go
Okay,
ahead.
it might look very familiar to you because part of this first invoice is,
Excuse me, page 7, right?
I'm getting there,
Or I was,
page 8.
oh, page 8.
Page 8.
Yeah, so you can see it's $17,577. At the last meeting, the invoice that was presented to you had a typographical error from what we received from the city. It said 17,755. So we actually voided that check.
Okay.
And because there was one more smaller invoice to be paid, we added it to this one. So we're not paying $17,000 twice, we are simply paying this once.
Perfect.
I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that as well. All right, so we have two invoices, so we can just approve those together.
I move we approve the invoices.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion and a second to approve both invoices. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, in your packet that was handed out today, I don't think it'll be on your computer, is the review of the financial summary of September 2023. And again, this is just for information purposes.
Did everybody get one, or do I need to? Here you go, Butch.
Thank you.
Yes. Because these meetings are fairly early in the month, Carolyn doesn't have a chance, oh, you got one. Carolyn doesn't have a chance to balance
Thanks.
the accounts before we do the packets. So that's why we almost always hand these out at the meeting. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. You're welcome. You can see on the East Orchard Sewer that the bond payment was made in September for the 348,000 URA. This one. This is the end of the fiscal year for the URA, so there could be in November some adjustments made to this based on accounting that need to have accruals put in, but for the most part, this was the full year for fiscal year 2023. We are now in fiscal year 2024 as of October 1st.
So this doesn't reflect the voided check though, correct? Or the check that you guys wrote?
The check was never written, yeah, it was just voided,
Okay.
so.
Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the financial summary?
Is there anything we should dwell on? Just giving a quick first look.
Looks pretty
I do not believe there's anything to dwell on, no.
It looks pretty straightforward.
Last time there was a question about the bond payment, and it is reflected in this one in September.
305,945.65. Right? That's good.
Did you say 3 real quick?
348.
Coming from this one, the 340, yeah. But the gift here for the sorry. And so the balance of that bond fund is principal balance of,
Is that at the bottom, the 552?
No, the 552 is what we owe the city.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
On the other page that I gave you was the bond.
balance,
1.117.
first column, is the bond balance now?
Yeah, at the very bottom, there's a little box, bond
Balance,
balance,
that's
1.187.
Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the financial summary?
Move we accept the financials.
I'll say.
All right. I don't think it requires a motion, does it? Because it's not, it's just for information purposes only.
Correct.
All right, so we will move on to the agenda, which is engagement agreement for legal services with O'Sullivan Legal. Looks like we had that.
Yes, so
Screen.
I'm gonna stop sharing and
You can introduce that to the group. Wherever he went. There he
he's
is.
still here.
Hi, Brad.
So at the last meeting, I presented kind of a draft engagement letter. In today's packet, we had a full engagement letter. Thad and I were able to talk a little bit. We talked about, meeting times. What would his involvement be? Would he want to be at every meeting? Would it be kind of like we would look at the agenda together and discuss, yes, we do need you there, no, we don't need you there. I think, Thad, you can certainly speak for yourself. I got the impression that it was like, it's not something he's going to say, nope, I must be at every meeting. It's definitely gonna be conversation moving forward. And so Thad, I don't know if you want to just address your engagement letter and talk about your experience and what your desire is here with the URA.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you all for inviting me to the meeting today. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay. These aren't my degrees. I'm borrowing someone else's office. I'm in Pullman today because I'm the city attorney for the city of Pullman. And so I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but like Shannon said, I don't see a need at this point to attend every meeting. I do like attending, and I'm hoping to attend some meetings in person just because I like meeting everyone in person, and I think it's better for establishing rapport, but I'm not gonna demand that you all pay me to drive down. One thing on the engagement letter, I did notice Shannon and I had discussed half my rate for travel time, and that did not make it into the engagement letter. And so what my thought is that if you all approve it with that change, I can send down a revised engagement letter. I apologize for not having that in there, but and please stop me if I'm talking too much. My background is I've been practicing law close to 20 years. Graduated from law school from Gonzaga University up in Spokane. Worked in human resources for about 8 years between undergrad and law school. A lot of my practice has been litigation, but in the last 5 years, I've really transitioned to general counsel work, which is what I'm doing now. So I have that litigation background and hopefully a good understanding of pitfalls to avoid. I represent a lot of public entities like the URA in Idaho and Washington. I represent Coolin Sewer District up in Priest Lake. I represent some small towns in Washington, like I said, City of Pullman, the Lewiston Airport, which some or all of you know me from there. And so I look at this as more of a partnership, and I don't want to be a hall monitor, but of course, obviously, if I'm at a meeting and I see something that I'm concerned about as far as open public meetings or public records, I'll raise my hand. But what I like to do is I like to be here to work with the client to see, figure out what the goal is and how we get there. So that's just a short summary. Any questions for me?
Yeah, I've got a question, Thad. Or do you want to go? So you're at Pullman today. Is there a chance that there would be some synergies with that, and that you could be in Pullman and then come down here, and then we wouldn't pay the entire fee all the way back to Spokane, or?
Well, my preference would be, it's pretty difficult because I'm in Pullman on days where there's a city council meeting, which is 1 or 2 Tuesdays a month. Usually the 2nd and the 4th, to avoid conflict with the city, with the Lewiston airport. And so my days are pretty full because I'm only down here once or twice a month. But we could figure something out. I also am talking with the city of Cul-de-Sac. And so I think we can work something out, or if we could line up the URA with the airport board. I know that's a lot for Joe and Sheila in the same day. But then, of course, we'd work that trip out. So I'm not going to be paid twice for my travel time.
Okay.
Yeah, so my understanding is the airport meetings are on the 3rd Tuesdays of the month. That's 3 or 4? 3? Yeah. Okay. And so one of the issues that we discussed was, well, there could be a possibility there for both the airport and the URA to share in that travel time if possible. I believe when we've tried to do a URA meeting on the 3rd Tuesday, though, it didn't work for you?
No.
No? Okay, maybe it was just that 1 month then.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's something we want to entertain or if it's conflicting, but the URA meetings are set by the bylaws, but you can change the bylaws if you need to. These meetings aren't necessarily set in stone. It's kind of whatever works for the board.
Or we could look at changing the airport board meeting.
Either one.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Thursday's always a problem for me.
What about Tuesday?
I'm up north, you know.
3rd Tuesday or 3rd Thursday?
Third Thursday,
Okay, so we're kind of looking at
Yeah.
3rd Tuesday.
no problem.
Is that a conflict for anything else? Okay. All right, Butch, do you have something you want to say?
Well, a couple things, but one, I'd hate to have 2 of our members have to attend 2 long meetings on the same day. I would feel for you. You might get cranky.
But not for us, it would be cranky for the airport.
Yeah, right.
2 things. One, Thad, it's nice to meet you. Do you have any prior experience in urban renewal work? And second, wouldn't attendance by Zoom be pretty effective when that would fill the bill?
So I'm gonna act like I'm in a debate, and I'm gonna answer another question before I get to your question. I just want to add on to Joe, if there was a time, and the rest of the board, if there was a time on a Tuesday and I knew that you all wanted me there in person, I could carve that time out in Pullman and be there. But it may be more difficult on a regular basis. So, okay, on to the next questions. Thank you. I have not done urban renewal agency work before. I'm more of the general public entity work. However, I've reviewed the statute, confident that I can get up to speed on URAs quickly and address any issues that come up. And 3, I think Zoom is very effective, but I really prefer in person. But again, obviously, you all are the ones who decide whether or not you want me to be there in person. So I'm not going to force you I'm not going to say the only way I'll attend is in person. That's really up to you all. It's just my personal preference, at least, especially at these early meetings. And maybe we can work out some type of write-off too, but mostly I just wanna, I find it easier to establish sort of relationship with you all if I'm there in the room. It's more effective than Zoom.
Agreed.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us, Thad. Does anybody else have any questions of Thad? No? Tim, any questions? Okay. All right, so do we let Thad stay on or do we?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So this is
Thank
absolutely.
you, I'll stay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so this is an action item. So we are here today. We visited with Thad and we are looking over his engagement agreement. He's mentioned that we have the 50% reduction of travel that's not in there. So I guess we're just here to approve that with that amendment that he would later send.
Yes.
So, and I'm gonna recuse myself since I work at the airport and I think Joe is
I'm
as
gonna
well.
Recuse
So-
myself too, so.
So we spoke with our legal team and you only recuse yourself if you have a financial benefit to gain from him being a lawyer. So like
Okay.
if you worked in his law office or a spouse and you share that income, just being a member of the airport board and working with him in another capacity is not necessarily
Okay.
a monetary benefit to yourself.
Oh, so what you're saying is we don't need to recuse
You do not
Alright.
recuse yourself.
Okay,
Perfect.
yeah, that's great. You agree with that, Thad?
Yes.
You don't have to answer, we don't pay him.
He and I actually talked about it.
I'm not officially your legal counsel just yet.
If there's a covenant on this, I want some of it.
But yes, I agree. I think there's no financial interest at stake here. And so the fact that we work together in a different capacity, I don't think there's a conflict there that would require recusal.
Okay,
Okay,
Madam Chairman,
yes.
I would move the URA accept and sign the engagement agreement with O'Sullivan Legal.
All right. Is there
I
a
will
second?
second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
and I just wanna make it clear that we're accepting it with the amendment.
Yes, with the 50% reduction of travel.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I look forward to working with y'all.
Yeah, this will be good.
And we will too.
Awesome. All right, so we'll move on to unfinished and new business. And the first item on the agenda is the downtown URA review.
Yes.
And I will turn it over to Shannon because I think she has some things to present.
I do. So what I'm gonna do is walk through a quick overview of high level. If you want to follow along, you can do so in your binder if you have it. If not, it's, like I said, I'm just gonna step through the downtown revenue allocation area 7 with the high level points, just to kind of start the conversation. Again, what we wanna do is start with the mission of the URA, promote economic development by assisting with improvements to vacant, underutilized, or blighted land. In doing so, the land becomes productive again, increasing its value and the taxes it contributes to the community. Downtown revenue allocation area number 7, the boundaries were created in January of 2021. After boundaries are created, then the URA works on an actual plan for the area. It was then approved in December of 2021. It had gone through planning and zoning, the usual steps that take to go through and get one of these created. And you can see here that the term is 20 years from 2021, which is 2041. Oopsies. Here is a picture of the revenue allocation area boundaries. This is different than the original downtown revenue allocation area. It does encompass the hospital area, kind of goes up a little bit to the south more than the original area did at the hospital, and I believe also along Snake River Avenue here. And you can see it's bound by Lincoln Street, and that snaps to the East Main revenue allocation area number 4. Right here. Oopsies. So with every revenue allocation area, blight is identified. In this case, it listed a few things, and those included infrastructure or lack thereof, fire activity, which is also could be contributed to lack of infrastructure, single-family residential buildings, and their valuations compared to industry norm, tenancy and income, and the fact that this is in an opportunity zone. There's several projects listed in this plan, and I've lined them out here to be water mains, the pedestrian staircases that go, they call them the scary stairs, if you will, but they end up downtown near 6th Street, or New 6th Street, I should say. Wayfinding signs, this is for tourism purposes and for folks to be able to access things in the downtown area. Streets, parking lots, and parking garages, flood control, wastewater lines, and of course blight removal. Because with every revenue allocation area, you identify blight, you can remove said blight. The increment projection in this plan is based on a 4% growth rate from 2005 to 2019 in the area. The estimate at the time that this plan was done was $10 million. We have had 1 year of increment, and so currently revenue allocation area 7 has $86,000. Katie and I were discussing this one ahead of this meeting because unlike other revenue allocation areas that have been formed for 5 years, you tend to see a history and trends on these revenue allocation areas and can do a little bit better predicting. This one we have very little information on to say yes, that growth rate of 4% is an accurate one. Keep in mind that the downtown revenue allocation area has mostly the majority of properties is commercial. And commercial versus residential in Idaho, I can't remember the House bill, it might be 389, but has decreased, and so you're collecting less. And so how that will affect this revenue allocation area or the increment is yet to be seen. So can I guarantee you that it's gonna generate $10 million over the next 20 years? I don't know at this point. I think a couple more years into it, we will have a better idea. And so those are the high level points within any revenue allocation area: blight, projects, increment. And so I just wanted to touch on those before we discuss anything else further. I should also add that there was some, I'm gonna close this so that we're not sitting on this. Sorry, I have to do it over here. The Twin City food site is included on this in this revenue allocation area. And last night, the city council voted to reopen negotiations, if you will, with the Twin City Foods owners for the possibility of purchasing the property. And so, although purchase of property is not identified in the Urban Renewal Plan number 7, purchase of property is allowed by URAs, and oftentimes URAs will remediate properties, and URAs actually have more, or I should say less, restrictions than municipalities do when redeveloping properties and selling them. So with that in mind,
Shannon,
yes,
is the city buying it or are we buying it, URA?
the city is negotiating to purchase this property, the Twin City
They're
Foods
gonna go
property.
through the URA to purchase it, or how's that gonna work?
No, currently it's just the city negotiating on their own behalf.
Okay.
Yes.
I was kind of curious when I read that in the paper this morning, if we know how much Twin Cities has been paying in property tax.
I do not know. I do know that it did decrease, being a manufacturing commercial property. I don't know the percentage, do you?
I don't remember, but it's,
Decreasing.
everybody that owns a house in town is basically paying for their property tax.
Yeah, there was that huge shift, yes, in this last year, as we all know.
Maybe I misunderstood Joe's question, or Don's question. I thought it was not a question of who's negotiating. I think the question was, could URA purchase the property?
The URAs can purchase property. Purchase of the Twin City Foods property is not identified in the Urban Renewal Revenue Allocation Area Plan currently.
Great.
If the URA wanted to pursue that, I believe an amendment to the plan would be necessary.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So currently it is the city of Lewiston. However, that does not mean that the URA could not help the city realize its vision for the piece of property.
Like infrastructure?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, infrastructure. The general idea is, or the reasoning, I guess, behind a public entity buying a piece of property like this is economic development. The property has been sitting vacant for a couple of decades. There is issues on that property, including buried cement that leaches, if you will, chemicals. DEQ has done a lot of assessments. They're currently doing 2 assessments right now on that piece of property. If you're familiar with the history of it, there was a developer called the Gin Group that came in and did a lot of work on this property. Their recommendation at the end of the day was, this is an untested market to develop a 13-acre piece of property. Their suggestion was to start breaking it down and subdividing it. If the city or a public entity were to purchase the piece of property, they are able to engage with DEQ for brownfields grants, where a private entity cannot. And so when you have an entity such as Twin City Foods or another corporation that owns that piece of property, it is very difficult to access those grant dollars. And DEQ has been interested in this piece of property for 20 years. So certainly the hope is you purchase the property, you remediate it, you do the cleanup with the brownfields grants, and then what? And I think that may be the URA's place, is then what piece of it. However, there may be other issues on the property for removal of blight that DEQ wouldn't cover. So let's say one of them is a building that is not usable. DEQ wouldn't necessarily clean that up. Could the URA under blight removal? Yes. So there could be some, pretty great possibilities for the URA to partner with the city in this case. And that's all assuming that negotiations go well between the city and the owner. So these are all kind of open possibilities right now.
Just for my understanding, so we would either have to wait until our downtown URA had built up this 86,000 to a usable number, or go in debt for it if we wanted.
Yeah, there's always several ways of going about financing projects or purchases of property, and as like the East Orchard Sewer, for example, the URA bonded that with the assistance of the city of Lewiston. Recall that we owe the city because of their putting up the $1 million for the bond. Yeah. Again, bonding right now would be a little tenuous. I don't know, for 2 reasons. One, you need the cash to secure the bond. We would have to possibly go back to the city to do that. Would they be willing to? Maybe not when they're in negotiations for a purchase of property. And 2, without the proven track record of the increment at this point, I'm just not sure. I haven't had a lot of experience, haven't had any experience with securing bonds. So I don't really know what that process looks like today. And then Joe, if you're welcome to.
You have something you wanted to?
Yeah, so, if you remember the first meeting I attended, you were showing the presentation that we showed the city council.
Yes.
And I had updated the chart that kind of showed what the value proposition was for the URA. And what I did is, notwithstanding, the city negotiated to buy the property, I still think this is a really good exercise to show how you can use that same construct to look at a project and see what the value is. And so, as I was reading through the renewal agency binder that Katie put together, I kind of honed in on the downtown project and kind of deep dove that, and these were kind of my ideas, and so this little 2-page document shows kind of an executive summary of what if the URA bought that property, they cleaned it up, if there's any legal vagaries to the property, clean those up for easements, ownership of the well or the water rights, the sewer lines that go underneath the Clearwater River over to North Lewiston, those type of things, and then subdivided it, put infrastructure in, hired somebody to create a plan that I would assume the city council would need to approve, and then sell those to a developer to develop something that fit the overall plan, what it would look like if the URA got involved and what the value proposition was for that. And personally, I think that even, I guess we could buy it. The city had a chance to buy it a couple of times and then didn't. But to tell you the truth, that the city buys it, I still think large parts of this plan would still apply. And so if we want to go through here, I'm just going to read the plan summary real quickly. The URA utilizes bond revenue, so I'm assuming that we could look at the increment, get bonds, get that $10 million. That's one of my assumptions. We get the $10 million. From the downtown RA, buy the Twin City Foods property. That might not happen. It might be the city that buys it, but whoever buys it, it's fine. Clean up the contaminated soil, resolve any legal issues with property such as water rights, easement, infrastructure, ownership issues, subcontract an overall development plan for the site, then install infrastructure based on the plan. The site will then be subdivided into approximately 5 lots. I'm just using that as none of this is just like brainstorming at this point. For sale to developers. And then I have a list of assumptions. So if you go to the second page and we look at that chart that we showed, that it's like the one that we showed the city council last month, but I'm plugging the numbers for the downtown Twin City Foods property in. And if you look, I've listed the assumptions up here. The RA project costs, it says cost, but costs $10 million and takes 3 years. So I'm assuming that whatever we pay for in the infrastructure, the purchase, it's under that $10 million. So, and I haven't looked, and I don't have a lot of experience with putting in infrastructure, but I think $10 million is enough money. Projects are divided into 5 parcels. 1 parcel, so if you look at the timeline, we issue bonds and we start our project, and then we have 3 years to do our infrastructure project, and then we start selling off lots. And at that point, if we sell one of those lots every 5 years and somebody develops a lot, this is just for planning purposes, that's what's baked into this plan. And I'm assuming that each lot has $10 million of new property placed on it. So that's what they would be contributing. And actually, I think that's conservative. I think it's going to be more than that. But even at $10 million per lot, it's amazing how much property that piece of property will add to the overall pool for property taxes. And so if you look at the chart, I took this off of the binder in the project, but it started out I just rounded everything at $70 million, and it looked like it started out in 2001 or 2021, and so I started it there. I'm assuming that in 2024 or next year we'll have enough information to figure out what the increment is, and then issue bonds, and then the project would start in 2025. It would go for 3 years. We'd get all the infrastructure in, get the soil cleaned up and everything else that needs to be done, and we'd start selling off lots. And at that point, we sell 1 lot per year for the next 5 years. And you can see as they build, this is what the increase, that blue area is the increase in the property value for that downtown RAA. And it peaks at 5 years because that's when all the building gets complete for that 13 acres. And then I found that in the binder that it was 4%. And I use that as an increase of the new property as well as the old property. And so that's where you see the blue keep going up.
Yeah.
Is basically, that's the 4%.
Right.
And remember, we're only seeing the very top side of the graph, so you're not seeing the $70 million below it that it's starting with. But and then eventually we'll close the RAA, and if these assumptions hold true, the RAA is at the end of this revenue allocation period has added value of $76 million to the property by doing that. And we did it with an investment of $10 million, which I mean, that's huge. That shows the value of URA and the value of the plan. And if we develop a plan like this for each RAA, we'll have kind of a baseline to track whether we're doing our job and whether our assumptions are right, and then we'll get better at it in the future as we work. So anyway, and then I put a picture of the RAA down here. This is straight out of the binder.
Yep.
But you can see that area that's right at the confluence at the very north side. That is the Twin City Foods property.
Big empty piece of property.
Right. Big empty piece of property, and to tell you the truth, I think it's probably the most valuable property in Lewiston because it's right on the confluence. And although I didn't put it in this plan, there have been talks about taking Highway 12, the bypass, and moving it around that property so that that property would have direct access to the levee. And then the other thing that just, as I'm brainstorming this in my head, if the property, if we sell these lots, I personally think the land will be worth $15 to $20 million just itself as we sell these lots. And so that's money that comes back to the URA to pay the bond off if we were the one to buy it. If we improve it, then I imagine that the URA would get some kind of split with the city. They purchased it, we put in infrastructure, improved it, then there would be some kind of split that we'd agree to, and then at least part of the money would come back to the URA. We could pay off the bonds, maybe even close the URA sooner, or roll that money back into other infrastructure projects in the RAA. So to me, this is like the East Orchard Sewer District. This is the poster child for what the URA mission statement is. And so I really think this is, whether the city buys it or not, this is a plan for basically giving more detail to the projects that are in that binder for the downtown RAA. And if anybody has any questions for me, that's the end of my presentation.
I enjoyed that, Joe, thank you. I've got a question that's really more for Shannon, because nobody here knows more about the proposed relocation of the levee road or highway than Shannon does with the metropolitan organization. Can you refresh us on where that's projected to potentially be?
Yeah, so there was a circulation study done by the MPO, 2002, a long time ago,
long time.
Maybe 12, that looked at rerouting the bypass from the north of the property to the south of the property. And basically it would go from the 5th Street and loop in front of it and then turn and kind of hit, cross D Street and hit where you would enter on the interstate bridge, possibly a roundabout there. I can tell you that currently the bypass, that is not ITD right of way, that is Corps of Engineers property that ITD has an easement on. And so there are a lot of players, if you will, with the relocation of US 12. I don't believe that ITD is opposed to it. They're just not gonna put any money towards it. At least that's what District 2 is saying today, but, you know, sometimes politics can say otherwise. So, it is something that certainly can be looked at. It is a project that the URA could take on. Let's say that the city does purchase this piece of property, it frees up that much more for the URA to invest in infrastructure. And so, because it would be a pricey piece, for sure, to do. There's also some right-of-way, railroad right-of-way along this property, specifically to the south. However, along Snake River Avenue, even as far as the Interstate Bridge, and then D Street, those lines have been abandoned and they're taking them out, they're removing them. And so I'm not sure the need anymore for the railroad to even go past where it connects on that railroad bridge. Why would it even need to go past that? So it's things that we need to certainly, whether from the city side or the URA side, look at all of these kind of check off the list type of things that come along with this property. But everything Joe is saying is, I think, what is driving the city as well. Looking at it from an economic development standpoint, saying, you know, in some ways the city's in a really good position to do the cleanup, if you will, not just the cleanup with the Brownsfields grants, but internally fixing easements and rights of way, you know, recreating a grid system. As far as development plan, I think we are a little bit ahead of the game there because we do have the downtown master plan as well as the waterfront plan, both approved by the city council. So we have concept plans already in place that can be further looked at and developed if we want to drill down a little bit more. There's also, I have been in contact with a firm called C-Clear. They have a lot of experience with reinvestment of properties or redevelopment of properties, and so that's kind of a resource that we have going for us as well. And so, yeah, like Joe said, whether or not whoever owns this piece of property, I do believe that this plan allows for the URA to be a major partner, if so desired by the board.
Yeah, in many ways, I think that if the city owned it, that would, like you said, free up more of the URA dollars to work infrastructure and those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I didn't say with, when I was working this plan, just going through my head, I think that basically the entire property of downtown will rise in value as this goes in. So it's not just what the URA brought in that piece of property. It's all the property's gonna rise because now we've got this great plan, we've got this new development coming. It's like having a small house in a neighborhood and somebody starts building mansions around you. Your value goes up if you own that small house. And I think the same thing's gonna happen to downtown, so.
I have
Anyway.
a question. I like what I'm hearing, but when you're talking about railroad, when they abandon things, that property reverts back to the original owner. So are we gonna have some problems with that? Because it could be, I know situations along the corridor, along the Clearwater, we've had issues with that. And so if people step forward and they own that land at one time, and the railroad took that away from them for the railroad, then it reverts back to those people. So there may be some issues there on land ownership till we clear that up.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I don't know, I don't wanna say I'm really familiar with this process. But whenever there's property and it's had a long time landowner or there are utilities involved, there are opportunities to clean that up and to make it a better package moving forward for the private sector. So it's certainly gonna be one of the things that we need to attend to.
So how do we best support do we just wait for the city to see where?
I think so. I think at this point, I mean, again, anything that Joe lined out in here besides purchasing the property, I think you could do under the existing plan. I'm not seeing anything in there that would say you can't. You know, there were estimates of projects at the time, but those aren't, that I know of, locked in. So if it said 400,000 in water lines, those are kind of high level estimates.
So we don't need to amend the plan at this current time to include anything that we potentially see?
I don't believe so.
Personally, I think we should kind of stay out of it, while they negotiate.
Yeah.
It would,
Yeah.
we don't wanna negotiate
Don't get
against
in the way.
ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it's definitely worth having the conversation of, thinking about the possibilities. And let's see where the city goes with this. We should know more by next month.
Okay.
And so we can just continue the conversation at the November meeting if that works for
Do we
Yeah,
everyone.
that's
know
great.
when the negotiations will commence?
I know that, well, I have a meeting with Twin City Foods today.
Who is the owner of Twin City? I mean, is it just,
It's
is it a
Twin City
it's
Foods.
Twin City, it's a corporation?
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know when they will
Actually
be done.
begin?
Yes, actually begin and actually be done. But the hope is certainly a month from now, and everybody will know, probably by that time. I will say that there is a phase 1 assessment going on the property right now, so that is estimated to be done mid-November. And so negotiations can happen, but exchange of money cannot. So will the city own that piece of property by November, whatever our meeting is, let's say 10th? No. But we will have a better idea.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, you bet.
That was a lot of hard
Yeah.
work. That was really informative though.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and there's a lot of interest.
Yeah,
Exciting.
it's very exciting,
For
very
the right
exciting.
price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I put the mayor on a short leash last night, because as far as I'm concerned, I'll have $800,000. It's been sitting there forever.
Yeah.
Nobody's been biting. Sure, there have been people looking, spend a little time and money checking things out, but I think, I'd be willing to go as high as, $1 million on buying that piece of property, but you start getting above that, because it's at 3.5 million now, right?
I have heard that it's over 3.
Yeah.
They did engage with a new
Realtor.
Jen
Jan
McCoy.
McCoy.
Yes. She was not at the meeting last night, but of course, all city council meetings are live streamed and then also recorded, so you can go back and watch them. And just as a reminder for the board here, if you miss a meeting, they're recorded and on the city's website, so if you want to watch, you're free to do so. And that goes with, Thad and I also talked about that, something came up, we had no idea it would come up, it came up, he's always able to go back and watch a meeting, assuming the technology is doing what it's supposed to. But Aaron is really good at helping out and making sure that we get what we need.
All right, does anybody else have any questions about the URA? So we'll just keep this on the radar and follow the city and see how we can better assist next meeting. All right,
That's fine.
we'll move on. Is there any board member comments? Butch?
Well, I missed the meeting a month ago. I want you to know this. It was the second Tuesday of September. It was sunshine and blue skies up the Locksaw and around milepost 148, 150 in that area. And I was waiting the Locksaw with fly rod in one hand, and I checked my watch at one time, and it was like 7 minutes after 12. And I thought of you.
You were here.
And I'm missing this meeting a month ago. So I want you to know that I thought of you, even though it was brief. That I thought.
You were sending us good thoughts.
Yes, we appreciate it.
And it raised a question in my mind. I was looking forward to the packet of the meeting before this meeting, to read the minutes and be able to dwell on some detail. And it didn't come and won't come in the future, right?
We emailed
Yeah,
packets, but we Yeah, so.
Oh, was that all emailed? Oh, I
Yeah,
missed
so
that.
typically you're
Okay,
gonna
good.
get an
So-
email that has the
So
agenda
we will
and the
have the
packet.
advantage of being able to read it
Yes,
before the meeting, which I
Yes.
didn't do before this meeting. Good, I stand corrected.
yeah, so when you get it, you're gonna get an email from Dawn, it's typically a week
Right.
ahead. We do the agendas, we internally really strive to do the agenda a week ahead.
Right.
The packet itself, sometimes we're waiting on invoices or other pieces of information. We don't like to send out a piecemeal, so the packet you may get a couple days later, but you will have a packet emailed to you.
I got the 2 emails of the agenda, the first and then the second amended.
Uh-huh.
And in that email was the detail on the meeting?
The one with the amended, probably if you scroll down after that agenda, it was the full packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can always, if something goes wrong or you know, you're like, this is not working for me, just let us know.
Okay.
We're just trying to save staff time, paper, postage,
I agree. I
doing
agree.
it this
I
way,
just didn't
but
realize
it doesn't
that-
work for everyone, we know that.
I was happy to get the email and read minutes on there instead of the manila envelope.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and I would say that fly fishing on the lock saw as opposed to coming to the meeting was an above and head work.
And I'm disappointed you didn't invite us. Awesome. Anybody else have any comments? No? All right, any staff comments?
So,
Back to you.
question, Shan, so how much does that save us not mailing out the manila envelopes?
Gosh, that's hard to say, because you have the staff time to print off these things, you have the paper,
Postage.
and then you have all the postage. Gosh, I haven't done an estimate on it, but I did notice at the end of FY '23, because we were doing the same thing with planning and zoning, so it's more of we have an accumulation, our department does a lot of boards and commissions, that we were doing these for, and we had quite the savings in printing costs and postage.
And time.
Yeah, so we were doing them, Katie was probably doing them for 5 boards, Katie and Dawn.
Wow, yeah. We figured probably $5 a packet.
Yeah, I think our department has
At least.
I don't know.
the most.
Yeah, I prefer email anyway.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other comments? Katie, you have anything? No? No? All right. Then I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, meeting adjourned at 12:52. Awesome.